The opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and Your Sports Network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
And hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Wednesday episode of Running Point on YSNLive.com, brought to you by our good friends at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. Anthony Hartwig with you alongside Gary Altizer to my right, and down there in the bottom box, it's Scotty Mincher. It's Wrestling Wednesday, episode 8. How we doing, boys?
Doing good.
Doing good? Scotty, how about you?
I am good. It's hard to believe we're like 2 months in already.
I know, it's crazy. Episode 8 is turning around. I know we usually have a guest. This time we had one, we have one in the holster. We just couldn't pin down a time yet. So hopefully next week we can get him or her. Not going to give away the identity. We're going to keep the mystique going. But hopefully we can get them on. I will say, I'll give a little bit of a tease. It was someone that picked up their 100th career victory over the weekend. So there's a little tease for you there on who we're aiming to get next on Wrestling Wednesday. But we do have a lot to recap. Gary, OVACs and the Hefner were the two big ones over the weekend. Let's start with the OVACs and talk about first your just general thoughts on how they went and your general thoughts on the recap of it.
It was an interesting weekend, that's for sure, because it's a 3-day tournament, but this year it was only 2 days. It was Thursday and Saturday. Because of the snow that came on Thursday night into Friday, they decided to first give us an alternate schedule where we wrestled a bunch of extra rounds on Thursday, which we don't normally do because we start so late. And then Friday, we were supposed to start later in the day at 5 o'clock rather than a noon start or 1 o'clock start. And then we got a message around 10 o'clock in the morning on Friday that said they were going to go ahead and cancel it for the day. And we were starting on Saturday early. So it just was a really weird weekend where you wrestled one day, you didn't wrestle the next, and then you wrestled the day after it. But I think that they handled it as best as they could. They have that big arena that they have to rent out, and then they have 42 teams spanning a couple states and hundreds of miles. They have a lot of things that they have to think about. So they did what was best to keep everyone safe, and it went through smooth on Saturday. They tons of wrestling on Saturday got through. I thought it was another great tournament.
Yeah, I do not envy the coordinators of that because it's not like dealing with trying to decide whether or not to play a basketball game where one team just has to travel to one school, and that's it. That's all you have to worry about. It's like you said, 42 teams, various states, 3 states, right? Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia.
Just Ohio and West Virginia.
Oh, okay, I thought you said 3. 2 states. Either way, they're coming across, and every school has a little bit of a different route to get there, so you have to not just worry about this street or that highway. You have to worry about a bunch of them and try to figure out what is everyone safe getting here, because, or I guess if the majority, I don't know if would they cancel it if maybe like one school said we probably can't make it, and out of 41,
No,
you do majority rules, right? You say, hey, is it safe for a lot of our kids to get here, and they had to make the decision that probably was not easy for them to make, that they had to cancel Friday.
Yeah, not an easy thing to do at all, but they have contingency plans set up. They had 2 different alternate schedules for things like this. They were very well prepared, and they always are. they start planning this thing way ahead of time in the springtime, actually. So they're kind of ready for everything. This was the 70th OVAC tournament, so they've seen just about everything. There have been floods, there have been snowstorms. There's been a lot of different things that they've had to deal with. COVID, that's the only one that's ever been canceled that I know of, at least in my lifetime. And that wasn't canceled until the very, very end. They pushed it as far as they could. But when you're coordinating two different states and two different rules, it just seemed to be impossible to get things worked out. So, but other than that, it was a great tournament. Lots of good wrestling, almost 500 wrestlers at the tournament. And this is a tournament where you only get one person per weight class to wrestle. So where a lot of tournaments, they'll let the JV wrestler or a second wrestler in a weight class wrestle and not score team points for you. This tournament does not allow you to do that. It can only be your varsity wrestler. So to have that many wrestlers, I think that's a great thing. And we just saw some more great wrestling.
All right, let's talk about the nitty gritty of teams and wrestlers that stood out to you and had good results.
Well, a team named Barnesville, it's way down south in southern Ohio from here. From Wellsville, it's a couple of hour drive, hour and a half, 45. They won it overall, and they're a smaller school, so that was pretty crazy to see when you've got national powerhouses like Parkersburg South there. But as for YSN schools, Beaver Local finished in 7th. They were the highest school that finished there. And then East Liverpool was next at 16th. Beaver Local had a couple finalists. They only had one champion, though. The Buhai kid that we've had before, he won a tight match there to take a championship. East Liverpool did have a finalist, Tristan Eccles, was in the finals, and he lost a really close one in the finals. I thought he wrestled good, and I thought they had a really good showing there. Edison finished in 20th, Southern 17th. So I think that really we saw a lot of good wrestling, and we saw guys getting ready for this latter half of the season. We saw people get down into weights where they're probably going to wrestle come sectional time. And for that second day to be cut out, that Saturday was a grind. So if you were in the consolation round come that second day and you wanted to place, you really had to wrestle your butt off because you had to wrestle 4 or 5 times in a row. Sometimes you'll see that and guys will get burnt out towards the end of the tournament. But I didn't see anybody gassing out. Everybody took that Friday and rested and must have kept their weights good because I think there were only 2 scratches. That means guys they had to pull out of the tournament for one reason or another. So they only have 2. That's pretty crazy with that many wrestlers.
And then, one of the Beaver Local, I know we talk a lot about Bobby Buhite, but another kid that I wanted to call out because he got to the final. He lost in the finals 9-1 to the kid from University, which, I mean, University, as we know, kind of like Gilmore Academy, good at a lot of the Olympic sports. The individual ones, they have a great program, great facility for those kind of kids that want to get into those, your swimmings, your hockeys, your volley, those kind of sports. University schools.
This is the University of West Virginia,
right? Okay.
So, yeah. There's one in Ohio too. I didn't know if you were mixing them up, but
I think you can say the same thing about both of them. But I was mixing them up, so thank you for that. But Justice Fisher made it to the finals for Beaver Local and lost to Pepper Martin. What a name. Pepper Martin 9-1 in the finals. But I think Beaver Local is a team that has a lot of good kids on that squad, and I wanted to give a shout out because I know we bring up Bobby Buhite a lot, and rightfully so. He won his weight class, but Joshua Fisher had a really good weekend.
Yeah, I think they had one other finalist as well, and the kid got hurt in the finals, unfortunately. So he wasn't able to finish the match. So they're a young team. They'll be back next year and be even better. They have a good junior high program coming up. So this is probably their baseline, and they're just going to move up from here as far as the team points go and what they'll do as a team because I think most of the guys on that team right now are coming back next year. I don't think they have very many seniors at all.
Yeah, Kane Curran was the other Beaver Local wrestler that made the finals. He's 17-5 on the year, so he has an impressive record. Bobby Buhite 22-2 on the year. That's a pretty dang impressive record. Also placing for Beaver Local on the podium was Leo Wilkes in the 126. He was in 8th place. Evan Orrs was in 7th place in the 144. Ryan Chaffins was in 5th place in the 157. And Justin Cox was in 6th place in the 165. No rest because it's the EOWLs coming right up. So Beaver Local is going to be gearing up for that one, as well as a lot of other teams in the Ysn family.
Yeah, that's a big one that's coming up. There's a lot of great matchups. I was looking at the matchups before coming on the show today. There's a lot of state ranked kids in these weight classes. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with these weight classes and how things go, because a lot of these guys are ranked in the top 10, are going to be meeting each other, some of them in the semifinals or even before that, before the finals. So the guys that you see in the finals are going to have to go through state ranked kids just to get there before they even get a chance to win the tournament.
Yeah, and that wasn't the only thing we had going on over the weekend either, Gary. We also had the Hefner tournament going on at Austin Town Fitch, which is a really big one in its own right. A lot of good teams down there. What do you see out of that?
So it looked like Uniontown Lake won the tournament. They won by 5.5 points over Austin Town Fitch. Fitch had 7 guys placed in the top 6, and they lost that close team battle. Unfortunately, I saw Marky Stankorb had the medical forfeit out. Hopefully he's okay. He was in 4th place. He made it to the semifinals and then didn't wrestle again. So who knows if he had wrestled those last couple matches, Fitch might have won if he was able to get wins there. So they were in 2nd place. Hubbard was in 11th overall. They had 5 guys placed in the top 6, including Nick Bowser was a champion at heavyweight. And I looked at his bracket. He pinned all but one of the kids that he wrestled. So he had a really great tournament. Gerard was 15th. Their 215 was in the finals. He got 2nd place. Jackson Milton had 2 placed in the top 6. That's a really good showing for a small school like that. Jack McDevitt got 6th and Sokol got 3rd. And then Poland 18th, Jefferson 20th, and Liberty 24th.
I'll tell you that McDevitt family is going to be talked about for a long time in the wrestling community. Obviously, Owen did a lot of good things and has done a lot of good things. And now, here comes another one rolling down the tracks in Jackson Milton.
Right. Yeah. The small schools run wrestling big tournaments, just like we found out this weekend, man. It's rough. It's rough to go up there against these Division I size schools, Division II size schools, where there's sometimes literally 3 or 4 or 5 times your size. Their graduating classes, could have, hundreds and hundreds of kids in each grade, where some of these schools only have a couple hundred in the entire high school, 9 through 12, boys and girls. So it's good to see Jackson Milton in there banging around with these bigger guys and having some success.
That's the other thing about the smaller schools. You're always going to have the family connections, right? Those are the schools where you always see 3 or 4 brothers in the span of 10 years come through the program, sometimes even quicker than that. And that's one of the great things about small schools that I always like to see, the family tradition and how one sibling's able to one up another, especially if they play the same sport.
Oh, I'm sure that's a battle, and it's something that they'll have to live down the rest of their lives. But there's a lot of siblings that compete in the sport of wrestling. There's a lot of brothers, and now seeing a lot of sisters doing the same thing. And if they're close in age, if there are 2 siblings that wrestle, they seem to do well because they push each other. And they're drilling with each other. They're going at it with each other. It just seems like another motivator there for them. So at least in my experience, if you have a sibling involved on your team, you seem to have someone pushing you all the time. It seems to really help.
So, and this is brought up, like, have you ever seen like a brother matchup, like in an actual meet, like or especially one of those individuals, like districts or state where you're going up and it's like, hey, we're both in the same weight division somehow, some way, and we meet up. Does that ever happen?
I've heard of that happening where, maybe one lives with mom, one lives with dad. I've only heard of it a couple of times. I had some coaches when I was younger who wrestled in college. They wrestled against each other. Right. But personally, I've never seen that myself personally.
It's always fun, brothers going up against each other. It was, no matter what level it is, it's always a big story when that happens.
Yeah, for sure.
Some other results over the weekend. I want to shout out West Branch went to Berkshire, their invitational, and had 6 placers at Berkshire, including Clayton Day and Gavin Hang, who both finished runner-up, 2nd place. And then they had Case Sander, Will Brown, they both placed sixth place. Michael Doris was also a runner-up as well. So 6 Warriors place at Berkshire. They're going to go and have their senior night tomorrow night in a duel against Alliance. And West Branch Wrestling, no shocker there. They're always good. They always have good wrestlers in that room. And the program having another good year.
That's good to hear that they got a good tradition going there, and no surprise they got a couple guys in the finals and doing well, getting ready for that Division II sectional coming up, which is exactly 1 month from today is the Saturday of sectionals, 4 weeks, the 24th of February.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy to talk about. We are sectionals right around the corner. It is not too far off. And then, between that, we have the EOWL. Like we've said it before, but wrestling gets really, really busy the next month or so.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. And this is when you get your league tournaments in. And this is when you finish up your dual commitments. And then most schools take the last 2 weeks in February off before sectionals. So you're going to see competition finishing up here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. That February 10th, 17th will probably be the last. I would imagine the 10th would probably be most teams' the last competition that they're having. So they can have 2 weeks to heal up, to get the weights right, and to just get ready for the sectional tournament.
One last result that was sent in to us that we want to get to, and it is a winner of Madison Burns. Girl wrestler from Howland went to Maslin Perry and took first place in that wrestling tournament. Quarterfinal, she went up against Riley Leitman from Cardinal High School and won by fall, 21-5. In the semifinal, Madison went up against Brooklyn Pryor from Beechwood and won by decision, 14-10. And then the first place match, Madison went up against Linnea Doss from Beechwood and won 14-9 by decision. So she's 21-5 on the year. She goes and wins the Perry tournament. So congratulations to her, and congratulations to Howland on getting that big win for your wrestling room as well.
Good to hear the girls' results. I mean, it's exciting that more and more schools are sending the results in, having bigger teams. We might have to have a separate segment for girls wrestling sometime soon.
Right, let's do it. I'm not ever going to say no to that. We have, I believe, wrestling on the network tonight, Gary, as we go into more of a preview section. Chris Colucci going to be traveling down to East Palestine tonight as they have a try with Malvern and Toronto, 2 non-YSN teams, but I'm sure you know a lot about both those programs. What are Malvern and Toronto bringing to the table tonight in EP?
Well, Malvern's been pretty good the last couple of years. They've got a couple really standout kids, a couple ranked in the top 5 or 6 in the state. That they'll be the favorites tonight for sure. They've got nearly a complete team. They fill most of the weight classes, and they wrestle at bigger tournaments. They were in that that Alliance Top Gun tournament a couple of weeks ago, to tell you just where they send their kids. So they try to get them a lot of good competition. So that's a quality program there. The coaches there do a good job. They're very hospitable at their tournament to open the season. So we see them, a couple times a year. Toronto, Coach Aubiel down there, he's doing a really good job trying to build that program back up. I think this is his second season there. He started from scratch last year, and he's got some athletes out on the team. Some of those really good football and baseball players there for Toronto have come out for wrestling. So he's done a good job getting the numbers built up there. We saw them over the weekend at the OVAC tournament, and you could just see them taking the next step. They're taking the steps to get to be a better program and a better team. I think he's doing a good job there. East Palestine, Coach Rick Hostetter. Yeah, he's a really good guy. I see him all the time. Most of the places we go, we see them. He's done the same thing, kind of built that program up. He's got a couple seniors there. One of them, I think, is close to his 100th career win, if he didn't just actually get to that. So, he's done a good job there. They're building things up from the bottom down, from the elementary school up. They're getting good numbers at their junior high, which is really the bridge to a good program. So he's done a good job there. So good luck to all those guys tonight. Three good coaching staffs there, three good guys leading those teams.
Then we already said West Branch having a senior night against the Lions. You've been a part of a lot of senior nights. What does it mean in the wrestling community for seniors to be able to be honored on a senior night, especially against a conference opponent?
It's a good time to shine a light on the kids. Senior night seems to bring out more people from the community, so they get to go and see those guys. When they announce them in front of the fans, they get to tell them their accomplishments. Because wrestling doesn't get as many home events as basketball does. Say you get 11 minimum with basketball, and then if you get more in the sectional, you get more than that. So there's not as many opportunities for wrestlers. Really, you just get a couple or a handful a year. So it's just a good time to honor the kids and the hard work that they've put in over the last 4 years, to tell the community about their accomplishments. And then hopefully if they get a nice crowd out, that can really help them emotionally be up for the match.
Another conference duel going on tomorrow. Boardman will be at Canfield, 7 o'clock start time there. The AAC, Boardman, Canfield, Fitch, Howland, Harding. A lot of good wrestling in that conference.
Yeah, that's for sure. Boardman, Fitch, Howland, and all those teams will be at the EOWL. And there are some weight classes in that EOWL that are going to be really good, fun to watch. That 132 weight class, which Bobby Buheit's in, and Adam Heckman. There's two kids ranked in the top 5 in the state. Hopefully they'll be on opposite sides of the bracket from each other, and they can meet in the finals. That, along with the heavyweight weight class, where you've got Bowser, you've got Canfield, you've got United, you got guys ranked really high. The Alliance heavyweight, I believe, is ranked in the top 5 or 6. So you're talking about 4 state-ranked kids right there in multiple divisions. That heavyweight weight class, the 132 weight class, those are going to be 2 really fun weight classes at that tournament.
The EOWL will be at Austintown Fitch on Saturday, and Chris Colucci will be down there for the finals of the EOWL. Gary, you just went over some big names to watch. Talk a little bit more about the EOWL and what it is and what it means to wrestlers in the community.
Well, it's the EOWL stands for the Eastern Ohio Wrestling League, and it's a league of somewhere between 25 and 30 teams. There are a lot of Division II teams, some Division 1, and then some Division 3 mixed in with it. And I know at one time it was called the hardest league wrestling tournament in the state. I think that there are definitely years where that could be said because of the amount of quality wrestlers that are there. I mean, just looking at a couple of these weight classes, Division or 106, there are 3 state-ranked kids from Division 2 and 3 from Division 3. At 120, it's the exact same thing. 126, you've got 5 with 4 of them ranked in Division 2. That 132-pound weight class, you've got the number 2, number 5, number 6, and number 8 kids, all from Division 2. Howland, Beaver, local, Canfield, and Louisville, all of them ranked to right there in the top 8. So 7 spots separating those 4 from number 2 to number 8. That's going to be a meat grinder right there of a weight class. Most of these are going to have 5 or 6 state-ranked kids at their 175. It looks like there's 7 state-ranked kids there. That might be another one to watch. And then, of course, that heavyweight weight class, that's the one that I'll be paying attention to there. And speaking of Malvern, I think that this is their first year in the league. If it wasn't last year, this is the first year there. They've got a state-ranked kid at number 8 at 215. So he'll be in the same weight class as Marky Stankorb and a couple of other YSN schools. So you're just going to have some great wrestling there. Chris is going to have a good time with the finals at that place.
By the way, I did get one result in that I forgot about. I want to go back and make sure we give him a shout out. Someone that we need to talk about more because he's one of the top kids in the state, I think, and Brayton Feister from Hoban, who won his 215 division at the Hefner as well. 9-0 during the 2 days, 7 falls. So he's good to go. They are hosting. Brought that up because Hoban is also hosting an invitational on Saturday, so that's more wrestling going on in the YSN family. Saturday morning at 10 a.m., Hoban will be hosting their own invitational down there in Akron. So, but Feister, I mean, he's one of the best in the state in the 215.
Yeah, that would have been it would have been a good match to watch with Stan Korb and him. He did wrestle, I think is Griffith from Girard in the finals. Hoban. I don't know. Is there a sport that school isn't good at?
If there is, it's off in the dark in the corner, maybe like a billiards club or something. I don't know.
Seems like they're at the top everywhere, every sport, everything they do. Their volleyball team's good too, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, their girls basketball team is one loss right now, maybe two. Boys basketball won state last year. Football's been in state for I think what 4 or 5 straight years.
Yes.
Obviously, they fell this year to Madison, Washington, but getting there is an accomplishment in its own right. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a school that just pushes out excellence, obviously. So it's good to have them in the YSN network. That's
Oh,
for
you're
sure.
not kidding,
Yeah.
Scotty. Do you have any thoughts for Wrestling Wednesday for Gary before we end the segment?
Yeah, sure. I remember I just wanted to pick your brain on this, Gary. I didn't get a chance to last week, but I was thinking about this last week when we had Marky Stancorp on, and Anthony, you could chime in on this too. But I just love like his enthusiasm and charisma, personality. What do you think, like, in your guys' mind, in your opinion, um, it seems like most people that love sports, they love it from a very early age. But like with anything, some people are more outgoing than others. They're more like maybe flashy, and then you have other people that are more reserved. Um, but what do you think, Gary, as far as because you see the people and the leaders that go about it and do it in a quiet way, and then you see guys that are more outspoken and just have that extra. You see the fire. So do you think there's like certain specifics as to why that is? Is it upbringing? Is it just influences? And then the second part of that, I just wanted to know, do you think it's good to have a balance, or if you're dedicated, it doesn't matter if you're humble or if you're a little more like a bit of a boaster.
Okay, as far as the first question, you're talking about coaches, right? And some who are like the hoorah and some who are more reserved, or are you talking about the wrestlers?
Uh, I really meant just like both, honestly. But
It's it seems like you're kind of born that way, and you could be conditioned to be that way if maybe that was the environment that you grew up in. You could definitely take those traits on, but I think a lot of people are just born extroverts and some are born introverts, and it kind of just how people are. They're some people are born just to be an extrovert, to be talkers, and others are born to not be like that. And I think you see a big mix of that in wrestling, because you do have to put yourself out there. You cannot hide yourself in a wrestling match or on a wrestling team, because when you get on the mat, it's just you and your opponent, and nobody else. There's no teammates there. You're not sitting the bench just waiting to get put in the game, or you just want to be on the team and hang out. You're going to wrestle and you're going to be out there. So you'll see both kind of personality traits in people, but there is an element of you have to be somewhat of an extrovert to wrestle, because you're going to put yourself out there. As far as like having a balance of, you're saying confidence and humbleness, is that am I reading
yeah,
into that?
that's where I was getting at. Like, do you think a balance is necessary? Because I agree. I mean, I obviously because of being in a wheelchair, never being able to physically do it. But the more we've had you on, and the more wrestlers we have on, it does seem like they have that extra swag. But do you think it's necessary that they still remain humble, or do you just say, if they're backing it up, then, be, maybe not cocky, but extra confident?
Well, I would say one good thing about this sport is it will humble you eventually. Everybody gets humbled in this sport at some point, whether it's in the practice room, whether it's in a match, whether it's in life. Sometimes it's an injury that hampers you, and you can't get out there. You have to be, humble to say, "Hey, I have to sit this out. I can't. My body won't physically let me do it." Sometimes it's just, you get some kind of an issue on your skin, and if a referee sees that might be something that somebody else could get, nope, we're not taking a chance. You have to take a seat. Or you get to a tournament, you think that you're the top gun, you think that you're the top guy, and somebody from out of the area comes there that you've never heard of. You get smacked in the mouth. This sport will humble you one way or the other. And usually the mental side of things is where and how it humbles you, because you just have to grind all the time. You have to do things that you don't like. You have to embrace the grind. And it is good to have a balance, because if you don't have a balance, you're going to get knocked off of your pedestal. I think that most wrestlers, if they've done it for long enough, have found that out the hard way, or, maybe they saw it coming. But most wrestlers have found out that you will be humbled in this sport at one point or another. So I don't know that, of course, you'll see some people who are cocky and some who are humble, but I don't think that there is an overabundance of that to the sport as a whole, because again, everybody has a bad day. So no matter how good you think you are, everybody has a bad day. I only heard of one guy ever being undefeated. That's Cael Sanderson, and he lost in international wrestling after that. He's undefeated as a college wrestler, but he's a really, really humble guy, and he has lost before. So the greatest wrestler as far as a record goes that I've ever seen is Andrei Karelin from Russia. He's a Russian Greco-Roman heavyweight. He won something like 800 matches, but he lost in the Olympic finals, to Rulon Gardner from the USA once. That's the only loss I've ever heard of the guy having. So eventually it comes to all of us.
USA. No, Scotty, just to back up, kind of piggyback on what Gary's saying, in my perspective, and Gary, I'm sure you can attest to this because you've coached a bunch of different personalities. Usually, if you're healthily confident, it comes with humbleness. Like,
Sure.
If you're passing that line where you're confident without any humility, in my opinion, that's more of an ego than a confidence, and that's gonna get fixed eventually, whether it be in wrestling or in life. Because if wrestling doesn't, life will.
Yeah,
I'm sure those guys that went undefeated in wrestling, they've had losses in life. Whether it be losing a girlfriend, losing something, losing a job, you're gonna lose at something. You're not gonna win at everything in life. You just can't do it. You can't go through the human experience and win at everything. We're not built for that. So whether you're if you're healthily confident, and then the word confidence and the word ego, there's a line there. And I think if you have the ego, you probably don't have a lot of humility, and that's not healthy. But if you're healthily confident, it really just naturally comes with humility too.
Absolutely. And that's exactly right. I mean, you want to believe in yourself. You want to believe that you can go out there and do it. You want to believe that you can win. If we're talking wrestling specifically, you won't believe that you can win the match, but you don't want to believe that you're unbeatable, because then you're not going to take it serious, and you're going to get caught. You'll get caught off guard. You'll get caught by somebody who wants it more. You'll get caught by somebody who isn't taking anything for granted and knows that they can lose, but also knows that they can win. So they're going to go out there and do whatever they can to do it. So there is a healthy balance. And when you find that healthy balance of confidence with humility enough to know that you've got things to work on, humility to know that what your coaches say are for your best, humility to know that there is somebody out there that can beat you. So you have to go 1,000% all the time. When you find that mix, man, you'll find a good wrestler and usually a good human being later in life.
Yeah, in my experience, usually people that are confident believe in their own abilities, believe in their own work ethic. They believe that they've trusted the process enough to go out and do it. People that have the ego believe that they're what's the word I'm looking for? They're owed it. You know, like this I'm owed this because I work hard, or I deserve that. This is something that I just deserve. I'm just gonna go and I don't need to work at it. I deserve it, right? So
Right.
that's when that gets wishy washy, and we've seen I think a lot of professional athletes come off as egomaniacal, but obviously they're going and backing it up with their work ethic, and they've worked so hard to get to that point. I think a lot of them are just ultra confident dog mentality, but when you take them off the floor and you learn, who they are as a person, they're probably not like that off the field or off the court or off the whatever role they play. They're probably more of a, balance in their own life, because like I said, Scotty, you lose at something, right? If you're not losing on the football field or on the basketball court or on the wrestling mat, you're losing at something,
The guys that are on the guys that I like to look at as far as the professionals go, it's the guys that are on the fringes of the roster. And if you ever watch the HBO NFL series where the guys who just really busting their butts to try to make the roster, they don't want to get cut. If they make it through final cuts, then their salary is guaranteed. Those are the most humble guys. Those are the ones that just die to be on the team. Those are the ones who don't have an ego. They're not out there thinking they're owed anything. If they weren't a first round pick, they weren't a big trade guy. They're guys just fighting to make that roster. I love NFL season final roster cuts when you see guys like that make the team. And the real die-hard fans of the teams always have guys that they're rooting for to make the roster. It's really great to see it when those guys do. You see on their Twitter accounts or their social media how grateful that they are that they made the team, that they got that chance, that they're there and that they finally made it. Those are the kind of mindsets that you like to see in younger athletes.
Yeah, what's lost in the polarization of the NFL or any professional sport is those guys are still the top 1% of the sport. Like, even if you're on like third string NFL, you're better than 99% of the football players in the country.
Yeah.
And they did something right to get there, right? Like they had a dog mentality in their own right to get to that point.
If you're on an NFL roster, you're the best athlete that you've ever known yourself.
Right.
I mean, you're the best athlete that anybody in your town knows, that at your school knows. You've probably got some statue out front of your high school, or at least a giant plaque and some scholarship named after you. So for you to go from that to barely making the team or begging to make the team, you're humbled. You get slapped in the face really quick. There aren't a lot of people like Tyreek Hill that are born just different than everyone else. There's only one Randy Moss. Those guys were just born that way. And once in a while, you'll see athletes that are just so dang talented, God-given gift that they are cocky and maybe they really haven't had a lot of adversity. But hey, we all get old too.
Right.
So, when that time comes that your body starts breaking down, you can't just do things that you did when you were 21, when you were 36.
And I think the reality, even if we don't see it, like even those guys, the ones that we get so annoyed at because they're such personalities or whatever, like they're not just talented. Like they've put in a lot of work to get to that point too. And like we don't even like to get to that NFL level. Like it doesn't just happen. You can't just be that unbelievably talented. You still got to do stuff to better yourself. Like for Tyreek Hill, for example, he had to become a wide receiver. He had to learn how to run routes. Like otherwise, he was just going to be a punt returner his whole life.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. You can't get to professional sports and be lazy.
Right.
We're not talking about being lazy. But as far as the humbleness goes,
right?
You even just the hard work can humble you sometimes.
Right. Oh yeah. Hey, we're not all Calvin Johnson. We can't all be 6'8" and also jump out of the gym,
right?
And have freakishly 4'4", 40 with that body,
something like that.
That's just God given. Scotty, Gary, that'll conclude Wrestling Wednesday because I think we're getting off the rails anyway. So we will take a break. We'll segment it here. We'll stop Wrestling Wednesday here. We will take a break. We'll come back and we will, of course, recap last night's basketball matchups. And then we'll preview what's going on the network tonight as well. Don't go anywhere. This is Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens.
Live here outside the Mahoney County.
On air, online.
Wednesday afternoon weather update.
Very dangerous.
and on the 21 News social media platforms.
I'm on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
Craftsmanship to us is 60 years of pride and dedication.
Passed down from generation to generation.
The hardwood floors that your kids take their first steps on.
The solid wood doors you quietly close at night.
The things we create day in and day out are the products that end up turning your house into a home.
At Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, uncompromising quality and craftsmanship built our business.
And it will keep us moving forward for generations to come.
Going the extra mile at Greenwood Chevrolet means we want to take care of the community that takes care of us too.
And we have to work together always. And that's how you stay in business for 40 years.
You know, I love being a helper because when I help somebody, it makes me feel good.
It means a lot that I can make a difference in others' lives.
So I will do everything I can and just being there for them every step of the way.
I want them to know within the first 5 minutes that they could depend on me. That's what going the extra mile means, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Before the lights come on, before the workday begins, before a long day is ended, or it's time to have fun. It all starts with the people at Joe Dickey Electric. From replacing a light fixture in your home to building a substation for your business, no job is too big or too small. The people of Joe Dickey Electric power them all. Joe Dickey Electric, over 60 years of powering the Mahoning Valley.
And welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you as always by our good friends that you heard from during that commercial break, Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. They go the extra mile for you, so you don't have to. And me and Scotty, we're going the extra mile for you as well. We're following the lead of our good friends over at Greenwood. Scotty, let's jump into the YSN scoreboard on ysnlive.com, which is presented by, I'm putting you on the spot. Can you get it?
Burnett Spas and Hot Tubs.
Yep, pools, spas, and hot tubs.
Yeah,
they have it all.
Spas and hot tubs.
You got it, Scotty. You nailed it, buddy. YSN scoreboard on the website, brought to you by Burnett Pools, Spas, and Hot Tubs. Let's go into last night, Tuesday, January 23rd, and see what the scores were here. South Range all over Lakeview. This is revenge for South Range. They lost to the Bulldogs in Cortland earlier on in the season. 65-37. They get vengeance on the Bulldogs with the win there. A lot of that theme going on last night. A lot of teams that lost the first meeting between these two schools playing a lot better the second time. Marlington and West Branch doing battle. The Dukes get the win, 55-46. Final score, tough one there for the Warriors in EBC play. I think Marlington is another team that bounces back after the first matchup between these two schools. We have Canfield and Fitch playing each other. Canfield coming into the night was undefeated in the AAC. They beat Fitch by 3 in Austintown, but Fitch turns the tables this time around. 51-46. Falcons upset the Cardinals in the nest, and knock off the first AAC loss for Canfield. 51-46 the final. A big shot hit down the stretch from Deshaun Vaughn Jr. that broke a 43-43 tie, and then Fitch hit some free throws down the stretch to keep their lead where it was. 51-46 the final. Marcel Finkley led the Falcons with 15. Deshaun Vaughn had 13. We go into Brookfield and Liberty, and it's a close one, but Brookfield gets the win. 60-57. They nip the Leopards by 3 in the Leopards' den as well, so that's a good road victory for Brookfield. Columbiana was able to hold off a very scrappy Wellsville team in Wellsville, a tough road trip for the Clippers. 76-67, the final score there. East Liverpool gets a fight from their rivals, Scotty. 71-62. They hold off the Beavers. That was probably the Beavers' best punch they could throw against the Potters, and East Liverpool withstood it. We go into Garrettsville Garfield going on the road to champion, and a big win for the G-Men, 73-61, a 12-point victory for Garfield. We go on to Jackson Milton getting the win 59 to 30 over Sebring. That's a bounce back win for Jackson Milton. East Palestine doing battle with Latonia, and it's a narrow victory for the Bulldogs 59-54. East Palestine with the win. Middle Ridge hosts McDonald, and the Blue Devils get the win 68-52. Salem and Minerva and getting in a close one, but the Lions come into Salem and get the win 48-45. Final score there. Newton Falls upsets LeBray 64-56. The Tigers knock off the undefeated in the conference LeBray Vikings, and that's a big victory for Newton Falls. We go on to the NE8, no problem for Poland as they win 50-33 over Niles. Poland still has that stranglehold of the conference for now. United all over Southern Local 72-38, the final score there. Springfield beats Western Reserve 58-35. That's a final from the Tigers over Western Reserve on the road. We go into back in the NE8 as Hubbard was able to beat Struthers 58-44, the final score from the Eagles Nest there. Lisbon able to hold on to their 9-0 record in the EOAC, 51-37 over Valley Christian. Lowville, another team that wins the second matchup after falling Waterloo wins the second matchup after losing in the first as they beat Lowville 51-36, the final score there. So that theme continues of teams knocking off teams in their conference they lost to the first time around. And Warren Harding beats Howland 44-39. Beaver Area, big win over Hopewell 75-41, the final score there. Bobcats on top. Campbell goes and beats Crestview at home by the final score of 69-21. Cheney was able to knock off the Urban Scholars, a big one for the Cowboys, 80-28, the final score there. Hoban was able to hold off Walsh Jesuit 49-45, final score. The Knights get the victory on the road against their arch rivals in Walsh. And JFK continues to ramble through Portage County, 88-40 over Rootstown. No one in that conference is stopping JFK to this point. Perry beats Jefferson in overtime, one of the best games on the network last night. Final score 60-55 in OT. Southeast was playing host to Grand Valley and got the narrow victory over the Mustangs 59-56. And last but not least, Harvey drops 100 on Conneaut and wins 100-55 against the Spartans. All right, Scotty. Those are your scores. Give me some of your takeaways, bud.
I guess I'm not totally shocked by these matchups and the teams that a lot of it, the theme of it, as you said, Anthony, teams getting revenge on opponents that bested them the first time around. I think a big thing to take away for me, it's that if you're familiar with an opponent, it's not that you can't beat them consecutive times in a row, but it makes it that much tougher. And because I think it's hard to get up for every game every night, especially when you're in high school and you're not making money and there's all kind of distractions and there's drama in high school. So I think sometimes as great as these coaches and a lot of these players are, that makes it tough. I'm a little surprised with how many of these teams won. I thought there'd at least be a couple more where teams get the second consecutive victory, but I guess it just speaks to the parity, and we all love that. In really any sport, but on this high school level now, Anthony, you just really don't know every night to night. I mean, nothing is guaranteed, and these players and go out and they're giving it all they have and laying everything out there on the floor. So that's why we love covering it. Is we're not gonna get shortchanged.
Those first three scores on the scoreboard, Scotty, are all teams that lost the first time they met. South Range lost to Lakeview, Burlington lost to West Branch, Fitch lost to Canfield, and they're all wins. Probably the most impressive turnaround was Marlington, who lost to West Branch by 20 the first time around, 53-33, and they come back last night and get the 9-point victory over the Warriors the second time around.
Yeah, that's in losing by 20. I mean, it'll definitely, like Gary, when we had him on, he talked about like really any sport. Specifically, we were talking about wrestling, but he talked about how any sport could humble you real quick. Not only humble you, but I think when you get when you have a really bad night, you kind of get your butt kicked. You're gonna do everything in your power to make sure you get that second shot at a team that you're gonna knock them off the second time around.
South Range lost by 13 to Lakeview the first time they played, 69-56. This time the Raiders, bounced back and beat Lakeview pretty handily, 65-37. So that's a big turnaround. Fitch and Canfield was close the first time. Canfield won by 3. You could argue it probably, was a 5-point game. Fitch got a quote-unquote garbage time buzzer beater to make it a 3-point game. Canfield hit 2 free throws to make it 5. So that one not as hard to see the turnaround there. Another big one that I think pays dividends going forward. Newton Falls lost to LeBray by 10 the first time, and they upset LeBray the second time around. So Newton Falls gets the win. Plenty of others. Waterloo lost to Lowville the first time around. Just a lot of revenge tour, I guess, was the name of the game last night, Scotty. And one of the things that I think is a reason when people are like, why did this happen, or what are the causes? And I'll say this, I'm going to just take off the score. Well, we're actually on the screen. I didn't even realize that. I thought we were full screen on the scoreboard. So if we were looking funny, or if we were not looking at the camera, my bad. But one of the things that I think is a reason for it, honestly, is we've talked to a lot of boys basketball coaches. They all say it. Teams, especially on the boys' side, because football is such a long, grueling sport, and a lot of these teams had successful football seasons. They got them late into the gym. They stride in January. So I think a lot of these teams might have gotten clipped early in the season when they weren't necessarily in the best basketball shape of the world. And all of a sudden, here we are in January, and it's a different team, different shape, different athleticism, and they turn it on, and now they're striding.
Yeah, and it's like, not to get too far off track, but I think your Kansas City Chiefs are I know it's a different level of that, but I think it's kind of the perfect example. Like people been saying for weeks, oh, the Chiefs aren't the same. Oh, this is when they're the most vulnerable. Like, look out, it could be an early playoff exit. Their first time going on the road, and you see them in the playoffs after those late season kind of struggles. They've really just kind of like said, okay, playoff mode, like this is when we're at our best, and you just kind of lock it in.
Yeah, there's something to be said about the urgency of playoff mode and how it just makes some guys that maybe didn't pay attention to all the close details in the season. They all of a sudden they're paying attention to all the little details that make you great in the NFL. So that's why you never really fully panic if you were the Chiefs this season. I mean, they were winning enough games to win the conference, which was the first goal. So
but you got him in, Anthony.
They were different.
There was a time when you were a little, because there was a scenario.
There was. It went down to the wire.
Your second last week where the Chiefs winning a got in. And
Right. If we lost the division, we did not have the tiebreakers. I say we because I'm a Chiefs fan. If those of you don't know, if the Chiefs didn't win the division, they weren't getting in. So, and the division was up in the air for a minute because we lost to the Raiders, and it was like, but we started up. We did what we had to do.
Yeah.
You get into the playoffs, and then it's different. And there were a lot of years where Patriots and Tom Brady for a stretch of the season didn't look good, and everyone wants to be that guy in the media that calls it, that says this is it, this is the year. That's why every year, if there's even a stretch of games where a really good team does not look good, there's a bunch of media people that say this is it, they're done, because
And
everyone wants to be the one that's right about that team, being at the end of their rope.
correct me if I'm wrong. Years ago, I can't remember the exact year, but wasn't it the Chiefs that humiliated?
They did. That was a Super Bowl year for the Patriots. I believe it was 14. Tom Brady played so bad in Arrowhead they benched him, but they still went and won the Super Bowl. So,
yeah.
I mean, you're a regular season for teams that are that good. Sometimes the regular season, you just got to get through it, and then the playoffs, it's like you hit playoff mode, and you're just that team. I don't know if the Chiefs are. We haven't beat the Ravens yet, so I'm not gonna beat my chest. We still, the Chiefs still have work to do. I'm not a guy that trash talks before the job's done, but I think people were putting dirt on the grave a little bit too early in Kansas City. Let's what?
Go ahead. I
was just gonna preview tonight's games real quick, Scotty.
Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, let's get into the scoreboard. We went over last night's recaps. Let's talk about tonight. What's going to be in the future? We'll scroll down to the bottom and we'll hop on January 24th. Oh my gosh, this month is flying. Girls basketball tonight. Looks like we have a full slate of 12 girls games going on within Ysn schools. Austintown Fitch travels to Canfield. The boys did it last night. The girls trying to do it tonight. Should be a fun one in the AAC. Boardman going to Mooney as they try to, come off that emotional high that was Saturday when the Spartans won in double overtime. Mooney looked very impressive on Monday, getting that win that they did on the road against Girard. Carrollton goes to West Branch tonight. They're 13-2 on the year, so West Branch looking A-OK. Cheney going to Ursuline. We have Heartland Christian traveling to Richmond Edison. That should be a really good road trip for Heartland. Marlington goes to Salem. We have St. Thomas Aquinas making the trip to Warren JFK. Howland going to Warren Harding. Jefferson will travel to Perry. Lakeside will play at Madison. Edgewood plays at Geneva. And Middlefield Cardinal makes the trip to Grand Valley. On the boys' side, a couple of these games are rescheduled. And I'm looking at the Edgewood game especially. Edgewood were supposed to play. The boys were supposed to play at Geneva last night. The Ashley Beulah snow got a little bit worse than it did down here in the Mahoning Valley. So that game got pushed to today. So it's a boys-girls doubleheader. The girls will start. Excuse me. Girls will start at 6. Boys will play after in Geneva. West Geauga boys are going to be going on the road to Orange. Pymatuning Valley going to be heading to Maplewood tonight on the boys' side. And JFK, after their win last night, no rest for the weary, they hit the road. And they go to Canton Central Catholic tonight to take on the Crusaders. Scotty, pick one game that you're most looking forward to.
I would say on tonight's schedule, the slate I'm really looking forward to on the girls' side, the Austintown Fitch going to Canfield.
That's my number one for sure. I'm gonna pick something different. That way we can talk about a couple games. But that's my number one. You stole it. Never letting you go first again.
Sorry, buddy.
No, I'm just messing with you, Scotty. The other one that I'm sneakily thinking that it could be a pretty good game. Is this Boardman and Mooney game? I think if the right Mooney team shows up and they play like they did against Girard on Monday, Boardman going on the road off of an emotional high on Saturday. Can they come down from it in time? I think this could be a game where Boardman gets into a little bit of a bigger fight than people outside of that program expect. So I'm looking at Boardman Mooney. Scotty's looking at Austintown Fitch Canfield. I think we're all looking at that one because it's going to be a real fun one. We talked about Boardman coming off the high of winning in double overtime. Can Canfield come off the low of losing in double overtime to the Spartans? We'll have to see about all that. ysnlive.com/live is where you can find all these games, and make sure to tune in on the network. We will be here. Me and Scotty will be back here next week on Wednesday. Gary Altizer will also be back next Wednesday for Wrestling Wednesday, episode 9. And as for me, I'll be back tomorrow from 1 to 2 on Running Point, which is always brought to you by our good friends over